Hey, Amy,
Yeah, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amy Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amy Cuevas, and I am Juan Ramirez, and you're listening to another episode of Baseball Shangri-La. Let's get the business out of the way. If you're listening to us on the podcast, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, write us a review, rate us. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hit that notification, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. Make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, Threads, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. Amy, how are you?
Oh my gosh, it's been like forever since we talked.
Yes, long time no see. So let's go ahead and start the show the way we always start the show, with our base running blunders. Amy, do we have any base running blunders?
No, we're perfect.
So the fact that Mookie ruined the show that's not considered a blunder?
No, he's a little puppy. It's not his fault. For those of you who don't know, when we started our last episode, there was some thunder and lightning over in Juan's area, and the dog that he is, Mookie sitting, decided to join our episode.
That's right. Mookie wants to be the star. And so, look, we got 2 shows in a row. We are on a streak. Our base running has improved. So let's go ahead. Let's get into the show today. So there was some news that was brought up today, and that is, well, not today, but earlier in the week, and that is that Shohei will begin a throwing program once the Dodgers return back to the States. Amy, what does that mean to you?
We're just going to start prepping his arm. He just had surgery in September, that second hybrid Tommy John surgery. Wow. Whew, not a Tommy John surgery. And so now that he has recovered a little bit more, it sounds like we're going to start stretching him out, getting him towards the end of the year. Doc has no expectation of him pitching this year, but there was an article that we were discussing on a previous episode where Dr. Neil Ella Trash had mentioned that Shohei could potentially pitch at the 50th anniversary. And so Dave Roberts had mentioned that that was news to him, but he would essentially trust the doctor. So I guess we'll see what happens with Shohei as he progresses.
Yeah, so I mean, I get that this throwing program is part of, his rehab, right? But this whole idea, not only, there was that information that was released that he was going to pitch a simulated game. And I guess, again, you contribute that all as part of the rehab. You have to do that to test to see how his recovery is up. Do the Dodgers, we're hoping, if everything goes right, and then by the time you have the trade deadline, hopefully they don't need Shohei at this time to pitch. But there was other news that came out of this, Amy, that I'm very surprised about. And that is that the Dodgers are open to him playing defensively.
They said this during the off season, and I rolled my eyes a little then. I am kind of shaking my head now at it. I just wrap the guy in bubble wrap. Let him DH. I don't understand. Like, he can do his workouts, if that's what's going to help his throwing arm, but I don't know about putting him in defensively. The article that we were talking about in The Athletic mentioned that he does have a first base and an outfielder's glove in his locker, so he could get some potential use out of that. But I don't know. I really don't want to see him out there just because I don't want anything to happen to him. What are your thoughts, Juan?
I know that we are getting ahead of ourselves, because this is not going to happen until towards the end of the season. If you are assuming that this throwing program is going to take the whole season, and that September is when they're thinking about doing this simulated game, if his arm feels well enough, I look, if the way Andrew Friedman built this team up, there shouldn't be a need for Shohei to play in the field. And the thing is that the last time that Shohei played in the field was when he was playing in Japan. In the major leagues, he has never played defensively other than pitcher. So why even throw this out there is something that I don't understand. And I think we're going to get into this a little later on. And I understand also, Amy, there's no point in bitching and moaning about something that hasn't even happened yet.
It's to
And
get this reaction right here, me rolling my eyes and you like, "Oh my gosh, why?" That's why.
because again, we have to have an immediate reaction. We have to have a definitive reaction to everything. In the end, look, and also what has become very clear is Shohei decides he's going to do whatever he's going to do, right? So if Shohei decides, you know what, I haven't pitched, I'm feeling really good about myself. I want to play in the field. But again, if Shohei is playing in the field in September, something has gone horribly wrong for the Dodgers because this is the reason why and look, between now and September, so much stuff can happen, right? You have
Ooh, knock on wood. Watch yourself, sir.
I mean, you have Jason Hayward, you have Teoscar Hernandez, you have Chris Taylor, you have Kike, and then you have a kid in the minor leagues right now that everybody is chomping at the bit, and a lot of people are saying he should be up here, and that's Andy Pages. I know a lot of people are down on Jason Hayward, and they have been down on Jason Hayward ever since they signed him, right? I can't
Are they down on him in your opinion because of the offensive production or because of his defense? I'm curious your opinion.
I don't think defense was ever an issue with Jason Hayward. I don't think I think it's always been the bat. And if you look at his numbers last year, look, Jason Hayward was not an everyday player. The Dodgers put him in the best play position to succeed. Now I feel the second half of the season, if you look at those numbers, there was a drop off there. And that's why I think I was surprised that the Dodgers went ahead and re-signed him. Now, I get it. He's Freddie's friend. Everybody's, says he's a great presence in the clubhouse. I totally understand that, but he's taking up a roster spot. Now, I know everybody, based on the spring that Andy Pages was having, that everybody thinks Andy Pages should be out there. And it could be that by the end of the season this year, you are going to see Andy Pages either in right field or in left field. But Andy Pages is recovering from an injury himself. I mean, he had a shoulder injury. I would like to see him play every day in the minor leagues and make sure he is completely healthy. I do think he is going to be one of the first options the Dodgers look at to call up. And the great thing is the Jason Hayward contract is only for 1 year. It's $9 million. If 2 months into the season, 3 months into the season, why are you laughing at me?
The season hasn't even started, and we're already talking about ways that we can send Hayward down or whatever. Like, the guy just hit 2 doubles. He was responsible for 4 of the runs on Saturday's game. Like, he still produces at the plate.
The Dodger fans that you hang out with, Amy, are much more positive than the Dodger fans that I hang out with.
Yeah, it's true. There's no lie there.
But you're absolutely right in the sense that, like, look, this guy could play. Look, he's gonna play against right-handed pitching. And then when a left-hander comes on, he's gonna go ahead and sit. And you're right. The season hasn't even started, but this is the vibe. I feel like people are very down on Jason Hayward. So again, going back to how Shohei fits into this, you have other options. Why are you even contemplating the thought of, again, this is what fascinates me too sometimes. You and I, we cover this team, right? We're there while they're talking to the media. And what surprises me sometimes is, like, you really don't have to say anything to us. You really don't. So this whole idea, when someone asks about Shohei and his throwing program, you don't need to throw out, well, we might be open to him playing defensively. It's like, what does that have to do with the price and tea in China? Like, why would you even throw that out there other than to create fodder with this? Because come September, you know what's going to happen, Amy. Someone's going to ask Roberts again about Shohei and be like, hey, are you consider allowing him to play defensively?
But like you said, it's just another topic of conversation. This isn't the first time they've talked about it. They already brought it up in the offseason. So this isn't news. This is just them reiterating what could potentially happen at some point. And who knows, maybe that's based off conversations. Like you said, nobody makes Shohei do anything he doesn't want to. Maybe he's the one who started that of like, you know what, maybe I'd like to try being in the outfield. I don't know if that's necessarily the best thing for the team. I guess we'll wait and see, but there have been some experiments where it's worked, and then there've been others where like you put Jock Peterson at first base and like it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it is just content at this point.
I mean, that's what it feels like. And I feel like that's what Shohei is. And this is one of the things that I think we slowly discovered as from Dodger Fest. I probably earlier than that, from when the Dodgers signed Ohtani, is the content that is created, that is driven just solely from his existence. Amy, did you read there was an article in The Athletic. Andy McCullough wrote this, and Andy McCullough, I think, is a very good writer. He has a new book. I don't think it's out yet. He wrote a book
it's coming out in like May or June.
He wrote a book on Clayton Kershaw. So Andy McCullough he's a really good writer, but he basically wrote an article saying that if the Dodgers don't win a World Series, it's complete failure this year. And I don't think you agreed with the premise of his article, did you?
No, but that's where my group of friends is more positive than your group of friends, because we already know this. But I guess to me, I think you and I were talking about this before we got on the episode. Like, how do you measure success? For me, I mean, growing up, I think, let's see, I was 1 when we got the first World Series win of my lifetime. Don't remember it, but I do remember the one in 88. And then we haven't had one since then until 2020. To me, those are all successes. I know a lot of people will consider it either a Mickey Mouse trophy or they'll consider it a failure. To me, a win is a win. Everybody, it's an equal playing field. I'm not even bringing salaries into it. But as far as once you get on that field, you have the players you have and you go play. I don't know. People take offense when Doc says that we'll win every season too. I think that gets brought up in this article of like Doc promised that they would win in 2022. And, he said something similar last year. He addressed that in one of the media scrums we were in. And I think you were there with me where what is he supposed to say? Well, we might make it this year. Like this, maybe this will be our year. No, you go in believing that you're going to win it every year and you're going to go as far as you can take it. So I guess to me, some of this stuff, it provides a very good background for those who may not be as familiar with the team, maybe more of the casual fans. But I think some of us who follow the team pretty closely, this wasn't telling us anything new.
Well, what I find it, because you pose a very interesting question in terms of how does this team measure success? And I think it also poses the question of standards versus expectations. And are those the same things? Because you're right. If you go into the season thinking if we don't win a World Series, and that's what the premise of this article is now that the Dodgers have Shohei, they have to win the World Series. Because if they don't win the World Series, you have failed. And that is part of the issue, I think. And I don't know whether the Dodgers had signed Shohei or not, but I feel like the argument that the article was kind of making was because of past failures, the Dodgers had no choice. They had no option. They had to sign Shohei. That Shohei is the missing piece that's going to put them over the top, and that Shohei is going to be the one that's going to lead him into the World Series. And I don't know if that is accurate because every baseball person that I talk to says the same thing. They don't know what happens to the Dodgers in the postseason. It's always the same thing. Things speed up on the Dodgers, but they don't know why things speed up on the Dodgers. I mean, it's crazy for a whole offense, 2 elite players that are going to be Hall of Famers, for them to go hitless. Nobody could predict that.
I guess so. I'm just looking at my scorecard and jotting down some notes. But
I'm sorry. What did you say? What are you looking at?
Oh, I'm looking at my scorecards and jotting.
Nerd alert! Beware, beware. There is a nerd in the vicinity.
Hey man, someone's nerding out
Do you carry those scorecards with you everywhere you go?
Well, yeah, actually I do. I keep a blank one in my purse because I never know if I'm gonna be like at the bar, the brewery watching a game and it comes on and I wanna keep track and then I have them in my baseball bag too. So yes, I do.
You keep a blank scorecard in your purse.
Nerd alert! Beware, beware. There is a nerd in the vicinity. Hey man, someone's nerding out over here.
You mean you don't?
No, I don't. I'm not as smart as you.
I don't know if it's that. I think I just love numbers. Um, but in looking back at this, and that's why I like it because I can have this conversation with you and I can look back at 2 games and just parse some of the what happened. There are already people who are, a little bit concerned because Shohei didn't hit. He struck out in that first game.
He went
And
0 for
then
5 in those exhibition games.
yeah, yeah. So 2 strikeouts, a pop out, a fly out, and then he hit into the shortstop threw it to first, so he grounded out. Um, but I don't think that's fair to have that level of expectation and put that on his shoulders because you were putting an entire season on one person to carry the team. And it's a team for a reason. It's not Shohei, it's the Dodgers. And they this is where like I think we all measure success differently. I feel like it's a success that we make it to the postseason almost every year, at least for the last 11 years. Would I like to make it farther? Absolutely. One, I'm not playing. Two, these guys are tired. They play a long season and they do the best that they can. And I don't think it's fair to put this all on his shoulders because what kind of pressure is that going to put on him throughout the season? There are 8 other people in that lineup who are going to be hitting with him plus the people all the pitchers that are in the starting rotation and the bullpen. It's just not realistic and he is still coming off surgery. So for everybody who's already concerned, he just had surgery in September. I realize it was on the opposite arm, but that still impacts your body. Your body takes time to heal. It needs extra energy for that and he's been working out for a while. So I don't know. Give the guy a break. Give the team a break. Let's just enjoy baseball. Do you even like baseball, bro?
Well, what I find interesting about that, what the article I think does do well is it basically recaps the whole situation, right? And the fact that not only like what I found very intriguing where it reminded us of the comments that Mark Walters said after they had signed Otani. And that Walter basically views his ownership of the Dodgers as a failure because they only won one World Series. And I don't think they're doing themselves any favor. There's a part of the story that the Dodgers were contemplating building a monument to the 2020 championship.
This
But
bummed me out so much. Sorry,
right,
go on.
no, but right, it's like, but then the pandemic happened, so it delayed the plans, and then they just decided to just move on, and they're not going to do it. So, like, it's not bad enough that everyone else in Major League Baseball gives the Dodgers shit for winning the World Series in 2020, even though everybody else had the same opportunity to win that World Series. But you yourself, as an organization, decide, you know what, we're not. But here's the thing that cracks me up too, is yes, they were going to build a monument, but they did have a mural of that 2020 World Series championship. But that mural is now gone. And why is that mural gone? Because of Julio Urias. So it's not that it's completely gone. They ended up replacing Julio Urias. So
This is
they
why we
do
can't have nice things.
well, but I just to me it goes back to, is this a standard? Is this an expectation? Like, what is it that the Dodgers, how are they defining success? Because yes, it has now become, I think Dodger fans fully expect at least you have to make the playoffs. Okay. And it's even further than that. I'm sure there's a lot of Dodger, especially with the offseason they had, you have to win the World Series. You have to win the World Series because if you don't win the World Series, you're a failure. And I know this is a conversation that we've had before, but I feel like this is the narrative now that has been established. And what I find interesting now is that Shohei is being dragged into this narrative, whether he likes it or not. So now it's like, hey man, they signed you because they couldn't win. So now you're going to be the difference. And if the Dodgers do end up winning the World Series this year, this is fantastic for Shohei's legacy because Shohei can sit there and go, look, this team couldn't pull it off until I showed up here, right? But if he doesn't, then what does that say, Amy? Where you sit there and go, you guys had Shohei and you still couldn't win?
That it's baseball. Nobody can predict how it's going to shake out. Didn't we just do the same thing to Mookie when we got him and then we did win the World Series? Like there were comments of like, well, we won because we got Mookie. Not that it was a team effort or that our team came together and won those games. A lot of it was put on like, oh well, we got this superstar. And that it no shade against Mookie at all. He is a great player, but I guess I just think that that does a disservice to the team. It's if they're all gelling together. I mean, the same was said about the Padres last season. They had a stellar roster, but they didn't, from what we heard, gel in the clubhouse, and that what is the word? It translated out onto the field. So I feel like yes, he could be a factor in it, but it is still a team sport. It is still a team effort, and I feel like whether we make it or not, we just really need to look at the fact that these guys are doing their best. You just mentioned Mookie and Freddie in the postseason last year. Nobody could have factored that in. You can't factor in that they still tried their hardest and they just couldn't get those hits. The postseason is a different beast. These are the best teams coming together. That's why they're usually low scoring games. You're not seeing like the 14-3 game we just had on Saturday. You're seeing like 2-1 games. Like sometimes there might be a little bit of a blowout in one inning or not, but they're still pretty close games. There's a reason for that.
Yeah, what I thought was also interesting about this article is it makes it seem like all the pressure is on the Dodgers, but the more you write it, and especially the more you see, it seems like the pressure is also on Shohei, right? It's like, hey, bro, they gave you $700 million, right? You're coming here. They want a World Series, and they expect you to play a very big part about this. I thought what was also interesting was the fact that you know, they made mention in the story because of Shohei, there's a lot more media attention on the team. And we've talked about this before. There's a lot more members of the media that are there. There are a lot more people that are in the clubhouse. There's a lot more people that, want access to these players. But they had asked Walker Buehler, and then Walker Buehler made a comment. He's like, yeah, you asked me, hey, can I ask you a couple questions? You asked me a couple questions, and then you asked me 6 questions about Shohei. And we've talked about this before on the show too, is all this attention that Shohei gets, is it a distraction to the team? I don't think it's a distraction to the team, but Walker Buehler is clearly a guy who speaks his mind, and I think Walker Buehler is like, look, I don't want to spend my time talking about Shohei. You want to talk about Shohei? Go talk to Shohei.
And I think that's where they have that right too. Like I hope that the media doesn't take that personally. And it's like if he doesn't want to talk about him, if he wants to talk about the game he had or what his progress looks like, that's valid. They did also mention in this article that Dave Roberts is usually pretty exuberant when he comes out to meet the media, and now with the intense media focus, he's decided to step that up. And I guess I kind of look at it from that perspective too. Like that's kind of how I want to I want to approach the game. Like I want to be excited about it.
Well, look, the season's about to start, so whether the records now that it's all going to start coming into a focus, right? It's all going to be about if they get off to a bad start, what's going on. If they get onto a good start, it's going to be like, can you guys keep this up, or can you do this in October, right? They are in a no-win situation. So the narrative, and I get it, you can't control the narrative. The narrative was already established. It's a World Series or bust. And no matter how rationally we talk about this, Amy, I don't think people, especially not the casual fan, I don't think they're going to look at it. I mean, there was a comment by the St. Louis Cardinals pitcher, and I can't pronounce his last name. Do you know how to? It starts with an M. Is it Mito Klaus?
Oh, I
Well,
don't know.
check me on the pronunciation on that. But basically, he referred to what the Dodgers are doing as checkbook baseball. And this is Mookie got a lot of crap during Dodgers Fest for making a comment that whenever we play a team, it's going to be like their World Series. Look, obviously, people have a chip on their shoulder. They don't like that the Dodgers are doing this. So there's going to be added incentive to go ahead and beat these teams. But at the end of
Then
the
go talk to your management team then. Go talk to your ownership group. That has nothing to do with the Dodgers because the Dodgers take all of that revenue and they pour it back into the team. Are they making money along the way? Absolutely. But if you have a problem with checkbook baseball, then go talk to your ownership group.
but I think as the season's about to start, if we look back and let's say they win the division, but they win less than 100 games. They lose in the World Series. Like it's still going to be, hey, they went farther than they went last year. They won the World Series. We could see like wonderful performances through the year from these players. But eventually, I think this is what it's become now is if they don't win the World Series, it is going to be looked at as a failure. And the thing is you have its own organization saying that. So things have completely changed in this organization. And the sense now they're talking into it, they've bought into this narrative. And therefore, I think the majority of the fans have also bought into this narrative. And they're going to say, you're right, we failed. We failed. If we didn't win the World Series, we failed. And I
That's a,
guess that's just
that's
the
a choice.
reality.
That's a choice though. You get to decide how you want to respond. Like I've already shared this on multiple episodes. I'm choosing to enjoy baseball this season, come what may. Does it suck to lose? Absolutely. But I don't like I just want to enjoy the fact that we have baseball. Like shoot, we almost didn't even get it in 2020. That was a horrible feeling. We have baseball now. We have a full regular season that's going forward. We have for the last couple years after COVID, then the delayed start with the year following that, and then we had the CBA hold up. So like I'm just happy we have baseball. However it shakes out, I want to win. I want to win the World Series, but I'm not going to knock down these players if they don't make it because show me a team aside from the Black Sox scandals where people are throwing games and then maybe I'll agree with you. But like these guys, they're playing their hearts out. So I'm just going to enjoy every game as it comes.
But this is what cracks me up, right? You and I were very excited for the season to start, right? And then, as I said, my group of Dodger fans, my circle that I run in, is much more negative than yours, right? So the season hasn't even started. We haven't even played games, and the conversation is as if they don't win, they're losers. They suck.
That's a
You know,
choice. That's your group of friends' choice.
they're a bunch of bumps. Like Amy, if they split the series in Korea against the Shopods, or worse, if they go 0 for 2, if they get swept in Korea, people are going to, I guarantee you, people will lose their mind and say, these guys are frauds. Here we go again. I guarantee you that's what you're going to see.
It's out there. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. I just choose not to subscribe to that. Like, there's enough crap out in the world right now. Baseball is my sanctuary. That's my place of peace. I'm going to keep it that way. If people want to spend their energy getting upset, thinking this is a failure, buying into it, that is their choice. I'm never going to change their mind, but I'm going to enjoy it.
Okay, see, this is why I like doing the show. This is why I like hanging out with you. I'm hoping that your positivity rubs off on me as the season is about to embark. By the time we drop this show, I'm expecting that people are taking naps or they are preparing. So, Amy, are you going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning? And do you plan to go somewhere? I don't know if people are even going to have, like, if bars will have viewing parties for this. Do they want, because they can't serve alcohol? It's 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So it's like, how do you do this? And I think this is also what has me caught up in the sense, does this even really feel like opening day? Because it's like, I got to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch this. And most likely I'm going to be watching it in my room, trying to turn the volume down so I don't wake up everyone else in the house.
You know what? If I was still in my 20s or 30s, I'd probably get up at 3 o'clock and watch it. I don't have that level of stamina at this point, and I have to wake up early for work. So I'm just gonna do what I did this morning. I woke up normal time. The game was already saved in my MLTV or MLB TV app, and I just watched it there. Scored my game in peace, and then went about my workday. So that's probably what I'm going to do here too. I just if these guys are tired from traveling and whatnot, I can't do it. You're a better person than me, Juan, because I think aren't you getting up and watching it?
I am. I'm a little worried. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little worried. I'm probably going to send up, set up multiple alarms, but I know that I'm going to end up pissing off my wife, waking up early to go watch the game. Maybe I'll have my daughter wake me up, because that's usually around the time she's on spring break. So that's usually about the time she probably goes to
Just
sleep.
go sleep in the living room.
Yeah, I can go ahead and do that. I'm afraid I'm gonna miss the alarm. I'm gonna have to set up multiple alarms like 5 minutes apart and hope that I wake up in time.
I feel
But
like you got this. You can adult. You got this. Set up the
I'm,
5 alarms.
I'm hoping to pull this off. What are your expectations in these two games in Korea? What do you think? What do you expect to see? What do you think is going to happen?
I mean, if it's any indication from the last 2 games that we saw, I'm hoping that they just gel together and, whatever ends up happening, I hope they all kind of find their footing because I think that's important before, whatever happens in the Freeway series. We don't even know who's going to play in that. Maybe a couple of them get, stretched out a little bit. I just I don't really have any expectations. I just want them to play well together. Like I don't I regardless of scoring, let's try to trim down the errors or, let's try to get our pitchers stretched out. So I'm just hoping for a clean game no matter how it shakes out.
It's going to be interesting for me because so I know Manny Machado is nursing an injury, but it has turned out that it appears they expect him to be in the lineup. More than likely, he's going to be DHing. He won't be playing in the field. Yu Darvish has always pitched very well against the Dodgers. So I think that first game is going to be a very tough, close game. I'm very curious to see how Yamamoto performs in game two. Now, Joe Musgrove didn't have the greatest spring, but I also think because of everything the Dodgers have done in the offseason, and everybody's saying there's just such a huge gap between the Dodgers and everybody else in the division that the Giants, the Diamondbacks, the Show Pods, they're all fighting for second. I don't think you can. I'm very curious to see what that crowd, who they go for, like because the show pods have two Korean players on that team. Are those people? Are they going to be rooting for the show pods? Are they have adopted the show pods as their team, or is it going to be people that are just madly in love with Shohei, and it's going to be a Dodger dominated audience? I mean, it's a fan. It's
Or maybe
that
they'll cheer for everybody because they're just excited to have the games there. Um,
we just want everybody to have a good time. We don't care if anybody wins or loses.
T-ball trophies for everybody. I do think it's interesting because the 2 games that we did see, it looks like they're locking down the lineup a little bit more. So we saw Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, and then we saw Smith, Muncy, and Teo, and then Outman, Hayward, and Lux. So they went with that lineup in both games and then obviously swapped people out. So I'm curious to see if that's what they stick with for these next 2 games or do they tweak it a little bit? Are they happy with the outcomes of it?
Look, I feel that the Dodgers looked very good in those two exhibition games, but the show pods are not those two teams, you know.
Correct.
And so they are going and this is for real. So realistically, I think the Dodgers probably win that first game, but I think they're going to lose that second game. But I don't know. I really don't know what to expect. I just for some, the Padres always the show pods always play the Dodgers. They get up for them
Mhm.
and it's the beginning of the season. And I think sometimes you can get a little too amped and it ends up affecting your performance. So, is that what's going to happen? Is Yamamoto going to be too amped? And what we saw in his last spring training start was that the beginning of something, or does Yamamoto make the adjustments? Because this is the first time the show pods are going to be seeing him. It is so many things. But so I guess really what I should be focusing on for Amy is if they do end up losing both games, it's not the end of the world. Just go ahead and enjoy it. You woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning for a reason. But
Sucker!
it's just baseball is finally here, but I find myself already wrestling with this narrative that is being established, and that is the expectation, which is so crazy, Amy, because there's this expectation the Dodgers win when just a week ago the world was turned upside down because Mookie Betts is playing shortstop. And it's not something that anybody feels can be sustainable. Like Mookie can't play shortstop for a whole season. It's like, oh my God, the Dodgers made all these signings, but they don't have
Oh
a
my
shortstop.
gosh, he's an athlete. Oh, let him do what he's supposed to do. Sure, you can be anybody can be upset if they want, but one, the season hasn't even started yet. And two, like these guys are just getting stretched out. Like let's see what happens first before all the cats and dogs come down. But I don't know. I'll remind you to be calm when it does start.
Okay,
If the
please.
worst happens and we do lose 2, don't worry, there's gonna be more games. So,
Can you give me Amy's pointers on how to watch opening day in Korea? Like what should I focus on, Amy?
focus on what they're doing well. Find 3 good things that happened in the game, Juan. I want you to report back to me.
All
3
right.
good plays.
I will say this: if the Dodgers do end up losing both games in Korea, the next show is gonna be lit. So make sure you guys are tune into this. Amy, before we wrap things up, any last words?
Baseball's here. So for everybody who was bitching in the off season that we don't have baseball and I miss baseball, remember that if they win or lose, this is what we wanted. So remember, baseball's here. Woosah.
Who saw everybody? So here we go. Just a reminder as we take care of business here. If you were listening to us on the podcast, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Hit that notification button, give us a like, leave us some comments. Make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, Threads, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amy Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You have been listening, watching another episode of Baseball Shangri-La. Amy, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.